Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back to another video today, and today the Brooklyn Nets are trading for Bojan Bogdanović, and he's going back to the team it all started with. He's played his first 2.5 seasons with. This is a part of the big Mikal Bridges trade where the Villanova Knicks are reunited. Mikal Bridges is going to be playing on the New York Knicks with his former 3 teammates from Villanova. Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, and Jalen Brunson. It's not just Bojan Bogdanović for Mikal Bridges. Bojan Bogdanović is going with all type of potential players, high school players, college players, even middle school players. I'm just kidding. This is a bunch of draft picks, and the reason I say middle school players is because there's a draft pick in this trade that is going to be in 2031. A lot of draft picks going to the Brooklyn Nets. And the Knicks and the Nets break that trade. There was some trade streak that I think was like 60-something years that it's been that the New York Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets rivals have not made a trade. Well, the Knicks threw them so many first-round picks. They said, okay, we'll break that. The Knicks are sending Bojan Bogdanović alongside the following first-round picks, all unprotected, by the way. 2025, 2027, 2029, and 2031, along with a 2025 protected first-round pick from the Bucks, an unprotected 2028 first-round pick swap, and a 2025 second-round pick. So that's why I said there's college kids, high school kids, and maybe middle school kids heading to Brooklyn with Bojan Bogdanović. Lots of draft picks are heading Brooklyn's way, and it's great for Brooklyn I really like what Brooklyn has done in the 2 trades they made today, because this wasn't the only trade they made, because then they made a deal with my favorite team, the Houston Rockets, and went out there and got their draft picks back. They moved the Phoenix Suns draft picks that they got in the Kevin Durant trade with Mikal Bridges and move that to Houston, so Houston can use that as leverage to potentially land Kevin Durant or Devin Booker this offseason or next. We'll see how that works out for my Rockets. But moving on, so not only do they get a handful of draft picks alongside Bojan Bogdanović for Mikal Bridges, but they also manage to make a deal with my favorite team to get their draft picks back. So they get their 2026 first-round pick back. They get their first-round pick swap in 2025 basically the Rockets would have been able to swap picks with the Nets this year in this upcoming draft. Rockets lose their right by doing the trade with the Nets. So, the Nets get their draft picks back, forfeit the Suns draft picks that they got in the Durant trade. It's very smart on the Nets end because, now Sean Marks, GM, gets the chance to, with all these draft picks. And I also want to mention the Nets could potentially have 4 draft picks in the 2025 NBA draft. And a 2025 NBA draft is not going to be like this year's draft where it's one of the worst drafts. It's going to be a loaded draft class in 2025. It's going to be a great draft class. So the Nets could potentially have 4 picks in the 2025 NBA draft. I feel like Sean Marks, is, the GM for the Brooklyn Nets, he has some work to do, but with all these draft picks, definitely there's a light at the end of the tunnel for this Brooklyn Nets team. Obviously, you're not getting any player compensation back besides Bojan Bogdanović for Mikal Bridges, but these draft assets will help them build a young team, a young roster. And I'm trying to think about who the corner piece is right now, and I guess it'd be Cameron Thomas. I guess Cameron Thomas becomes the next best player for this Brooklyn Nets team. I guess you could also say Cameron Johnson as well. Those are the 2 guys that, immediately are the best players on this team with Mikal Bridges. Also another guy I'm thinking about is Nicholas Claxton, who is most likely will be re-signed. So you got those 3 guys who are still on the roster, who probably are in the long-term future with Cam Johnson just getting a big deal last offseason. Nicholas Claxton's about to get himself a big deal. Then obviously you have Cameron Thomas, who's one of their best scorers. So you have those three guys, and if you can, bring some pieces around them, through the draft over the next couple years. And also another guy I'm thinking about is Noah Clowney, someone they drafted last year who I think they have a lot of high faith in. But I want to go over Bojan Bogdanović and what he's done and what he'll bring in for this Brooklyn Nets team, because that's why I'm talking about. I like talking about when a trade happens. I like going over the separate sides. I like, doing a video where I'm talking about the Knicks trading for Mikal Bridges and how the deal impacts them. But then I like doing another video where I'm talking about the Brooklyn Nets getting all these draft picks and Bojan Bogdanović and how the deal impacts them. Because, both in every trade, I believe, both teams, what they do, it matters. And at some point, it's going to both teams are going to have an impact on this trade. Obviously, it seems more better right now for the New York Knicks getting Mikal Bridges, and they're going to have a great team over the next couple years. But I think the future looks bright for the Brooklyn Nets with all the draft picks that they have. But let's focus on Bojan Bogdanović. Like I mentioned, he started off his career with the Brooklyn Nets. He started off, his pro basketball career, first 3 seasons in Turkey from 2011 through 2014, until he made it to the NBA in the 2014-15 season, and would continue with the Brooklyn Nets the next season, 2015-16 season, and even the 2016-17 season. He did a great job with the Brooklyn Nets. His first season averaged 9 points per game with 3 rebounds per game. Then he'd take a leap in the 2015-16 season, averaging 11.2 points per game. And then his best season would be, 14.2 points per game with Brooklyn in the 2016-15 season. And he would continue to play well and shoot well from 3. And they would let go of him, send him to Washington. And after, the 16-17 season with the Washington Wizards, he ends up going to the Indiana Pacers, would eventually play for the Utah Jazz, goes to the Detroit Pistons. And we saw him to grow as a player each year. 2017-18 season, we saw him average 14 points per game. 2018-19 season, he takes a huge leap, averaging 18 points per game with 4 rebounds per game. And, may I add, he's a very great three-point shooter, 39% three-point shooter in his career. 18-19 season, he shot 42%. Then the next season, after 2 seasons wrap up with Indiana, he goes to Utah, where he spends 3 seasons, averages 20.2 points per game with Utah in the 19-20 season, and absolutely shoots lights out from 3, 42%. 2021 season, he averages 17 points per game with the Utah Jazz, continuing the good three-point shooting. Next season, averages 18.1 points per game. And then the 22-23 season, he has his best year yet, averaging 22 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, shooting 41% from 3 with the Detroit Pistons. Then this past season with the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks, in 57 games with 27 starts, averaging 26 minutes per game. He finished top 10 in 6 Man of the Year voting at 9 and averaged 15.2 points per game. He averaged 2.7 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game, and from 3, another good three-point shooting year at 39.8%. So, yeah, I like this addition for the Brooklyn Nets. We'll see if they plan on keeping him. I mean, he's definitely a good piece to keep. He's a good scorer, and he's a great three-point shooter. So I think it'd be a good addition for the Brooklyn Nets to keep. I mean, if healthy, Bojan Bogdanović is a great player, and I think he'd be a good fit with Brooklyn. Playing with them again, but we'll see if they end up keeping him or not. Let me know your thoughts and peace out.